just had a premonition that this is going to be a bad one, because I usually ride it out at home, but something told me, you keep going.
I hate to be one that gives up, but I'm ready to go now. I'm really ready to move to higher ground.
On September 15th, Tropical Depression number 7 of the 1998 hurricane season was born off the coast of West Africa. From there, the guessing game began, with predictions running the gamut from Category 1 to 4, with winds ranging from 74 miles per hour to 155 miles per hour. Just 48 hours old as a hurricane and as big as the state of Texas, George had thousands of miles of open tropical ocean lying ahead of it, and it was already roaring at close to Category 5 strength. By the time Hurricane George ravaged the Caribbean islands and swept over Puerto Rico, Cuba, and the Florida Keys, it had diminished to a Category 2 storm. However, less than 24 hours from landfall in Biloxi, Mississippi, George recharged itself to 110 miles per hour, with gusts up to 130 miles per hour. It lingered at the edge of the Gulf Coast throughout the day on Sunday, September 27th, with its 36-foot wave strong enough to reverse the flow of the Mississippi River. In the early morning hours of Monday, September 28th, Hurricane George rammed into Biloxi and parked itself for 5 agonizing hours, spawning tornadoes and dumping more than 20 inches of rain on communities from Louisiana to the Florida Panhandle. It became apparent by Tuesday morning that Hurricane George had forever changed the communities along the coast.
Everything was okay until it got about like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and the wind started coming through really bad. And we heard something, but we didn't know the roof had came off. And about 15 minutes after about 2 o'clock, water started pouring in the apartment from the walls. It was going down the walls, inside the paint. It was coming down the ceiling. And then the ceiling started falling in.
I found at least 2 feet of water in my home. Everything was destroyed, everything. Bedroom furniture, living room furniture, dining room furniture, carpet.
We lost everything. We sure did. Here's when we lost power, apparently about 5 till 4 Sunday morning. And yeah, we've lost it all.
Started out at about 30 miles an hour in the morning. By midday, it's at 50 or 60. By 3 o'clock, it's up to 70 miles an hour. And it's continuing to just squall like that all through the night. And it went on up gradually all the way up until about 2 a.m. That's when it reached probably its peak. And it was kind of 100-mile-an-hour plus at that time. Shingles flying through the air and hearing things bump into your building and things like that all through the night, and the wind just howling and screaming, and you're just listening to it and concerned about everybody that's in the building and everything. Trees were falling all around us, telephone poles, light poles and things falling all around us. But the wind damage and projectiles and things didn't come flying through the building. The roof didn't actually pick up and leave. It felt like it was going to.
Well, it was very interesting because we had almost 300 people sleeping in this building the night the hurricane hit. And many of them were elderly couples who came in. Many of them were on our programs. There were the homeless who had no other place to go. And so the building was quite full. We had children here, also complete families who were staying here. And the hallways were totally filled with cots. We actually stayed for 2 nights here at the area command. We stayed here in my office on a cot.
I cannot really describe what those winds were like. I mean, I called divisional headquarters just as soon as I knew that I was on land, and I said, send everything. And they said, be specific, and I said, send everything.
We brought in canteen units from the Texas Division and from the Kentucky-Tennessee Division. We employed 29 canteens for service in the Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi Division, serving the victims of the storm. From our canteen units, we distributed food to disaster victims, everything from soup and sandwiches to lasagna and spaghetti, beef stew, those kinds of meal items. In addition, we also provided cleanup kits. I believe that we have distributed approximately 6,000 cleanup kits across the Gulf Coast.
Love y'all.
We know that there were approximately 1,000 plus homes that were flooded. We have helped literally thousands of people. I know we've served over 16,000 meals, and we still have a lot of service to do.
Within 24 hours, the Salvation Army had canteens and feeding kitchens stationed all along the coast. In Mississippi, Gulfport, Biloxi, and Pascagoula became major centers of operation, and the Mobile Area Command acted as the major command center for Alabama. As thousands of storm victims emerged from their shelters and began to survey the damage, the Salvation Army established warehouses, processing, and distribution centers to meet needs ranging from a hot meal to mops to financial assistance for clothing and prescriptions.
There you go.
Though Salvation Army shelters were full before the storm hit, officers stretched the limits of their shelter's capacity to provide a dry, safe place for many who were made homeless by George.
We were in here when all this came in, we were in here. This was the safest part right here in the hallway. We had the, that recliner that's pulled over to the side was in the hallway, and that's where she and I slept at. We lost everything in an hour and a half. When they came in here to get us, this is how it was. Yeah, because one minute I had a place to live, and the next minute I was homeless, so. You always think it happens to somebody else. You never think it happened to you. They have been real understanding, the Salvation Army, all of them, and they're helping a lot of people. Because if it hadn't been for them, me and my baby really wouldn't have had a place to stay.
After I told her about our drastic situation, everything that happened to us, she said, well, just come on and live with us. Just come on and stay with us until you can do better. And as I got here, I talked with Miss Stewart, and I told her my situation. Right then, immediately, she went to the thrifty store, and she got each of us a set of clothes to wear. I wanted to hug her.
Following the first several days of initial recovery and cleanup, the Salvation Army began to shift from providing the immediate needs of food and cleaning supplies to more long-term assistance.
The Salvation Army has established processing centers for the purpose of taking applications from the victims in an attempt to serve them over a long period of time. That will cover anything from providing the traditional food and clothing to perhaps furniture items, anything that the victims may have need of.
We're now in the basically the social services stage of our service, which means we have been writing for days now food and clothing orders, and then we're going to do furniture beginning next week and other special needs that people may have.
This disaster, I'm the one that's been affected by it. I've been out before, called into disasters when another officer has been the person who's been struck by the disaster. And I have to say that it is very different The person coming in, he's got everything. He's not suffering from any shock or any trauma or anything like that. He's got his wits about him. But the person who's just come through the storm, it's not so.
The Salvation Army is always dependent upon volunteers to help us carry out our services. It is impossible with our own officer manpower to be able to meet the demand in such times of disaster. Whether it's stocking canteens, serving on canteens, cooking, serving the actual meals, thousands of jobs, I would say, are fulfilled by volunteers who enable the Salvation Army to complete its service in times of disaster.
For the Salvation Army, disaster service has always meant more than just helping victims replace material property and handing out a hot meal. For the officers and volunteers of the Salvation Army, their motivation is compassion and love for those who are hurting and have lost all hope. This compassion in action dates back to the early part of the 20th century, when the Salvation Army formally established its disaster relief work. The experience and sensitivity the Army shows while working in the trenches at times of disaster is one of the reasons this organization has been named the most loved charity in America for the past several years. Hurricane George has been no different. When passing through deep waters, there is someone whom those devastated by disaster can count on to do more than just throw in a life ring. Look for the uniform and those working beside them to get in the waters and lead the way to higher ground, to hope and to new beginnings. Look for the Salvation Army.
Thanks to Salvation Army, that where we are now, that they have really helped us, and they said that they're going to continue to help us until we can get someplace to stay. They have been wonderful. I mean, hospitality, the food, the service, the shelter, the bed. We didn't have anything, no place to go, and we're just grateful. It's like a home outside of home.